Nice. That is nice.
Brother, are you all right?
No, I am not all right. I just shared a bottle of Kanar with Damar. That rhymes.
You're drunk.
Of course I'm drunk.
Oh, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the festivities. Yeah, that's what we'll call it this time. Festivities. So, for those who weren't paying attention, we are going to have a bit of fun with this one tonight. Normally, it's myself, Jay, occasionally Furball, occasionally someone else, just talking about a specific topic that we have actually come to an idea on at some point before we go live. Today, I can safely say we have no fucking clue what we're going to talk about yet, because we're going to let the winds of chance decide. Now, I have narrowed it down, so for those who weren't following from the tweets earlier or are not in the Discord server and saw the short discussion there, we have 4 shows available for competitive basis. We have 4 topics that are going to be utilized to further delve into the shows themselves. So, as you were able to see from the thumbnail, the 4 shows that are in the running for discussion tonight: Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Battlestar Galactica, the 70s version or the remake. Fair game on each. We also have Stargate. We're going to limit this one to SG-1 and Atlantis because, well, let's be honest, 16 seasons of shows to go through. There's a lot of material there to pull from. And then, of course, the infamous Babylon 5, the show that doesn't quite get the respect that it deserves, but with the topics, we may be able to change that, because there's a chance of 4 different avenues we could go here. We could discuss which of the competing franchises you would rather live in, or which one has the better tech, or the better writing, or overall, which one is the better show. We don't know. We're going to let the winds of fate decide and kind of make the arguments for us in a way.
So you mean we're fucked?
Kinda, yeah. We're going to just let the prophets guide us in all of this, and so there will be 3 spins of the wheel. And we have some wonderful new voices to be able to have this discussion. Now, Jay and I are going to flip a coin between which one of us is actually partaking in the discussion and which one is trying to play referee. That way we can have a 2 versus 2 sort of mix to this. And once the topic is determined, our other wonderful guests, which we have returning to the channel, Muttley, otherwise known as Leon. And now you know why he has that nickname. Also, I believe this is actually the first time for both of you on this show. Not necessarily the channel, but definitely the show. We have Lint.
Hi.
And the wonderful Nikki Daly.
Hello.
So, we are going to have fun with this one. We might get a wild Lego man popping in at some point. Fucker does have the link, but we'll see if he has the time. And if it was not for other things going on, such as prep for his game series that he is the game master for, Dapper Dino is getting ready to punish his Klingon crew even more this week. So if you haven't been watching that, he will be going live shortly after we wrap up here. Apparently they're getting into the finer tastes of Battlestar Galactica in the live chat already.
Well, fine is one way to put it.
Well, it was Katie Sackhoff, wasn't it? So that could be an interesting topic for one day. And Mute Donkey, no, it's not the Wheel of Morality. Let's call it the Wheel of Causality. I think that's a more fair shake of it. Oh, we have some opinionated people about some of these in the chat. So let's go ahead and bring up the wheel. And no. We haven't won because it's Babylon 5 yet. We don't know which one it is yet. That's all just from testing beforehand. So let's go ahead and find out what the first contestant show is going to be.
Turn. Show us the stupid that we should burn. Spin it.
Oh, this is gonna make it interesting. The first contestant show is Deep Space Nine.
Ooh.
Now let's see what happens. Do we get a Babylon 5 for the second choice? Or are we gonna have a other wonderful thing? So let's go ahead and get the wheel spinning again for contestant number 2.
They're probably going to be Stargate, just because.
Oh, for fuck's sake! I clicked it 3 times! And it's Babylon 5.
Oh boy.
Babylon 5 versus Deep Space Nine. Oh,
Oof,
boy. Let's go
that's
ahead
like
and...
severely unfair.
Well, now for the topic. As you can see, which would you rather live in? Which has the better tech, the better writing, or is the better show overall? Let's go ahead and find out in 3, 2, 1. Okay, which show would you rather live in? Alrighty then. Oh god, this is... Oh boy. Not exactly the one that I wanted to take part in, but
I'm just gonna go.
hang on. Should we... Let's look out to the chat for this one. Should we go ahead and spin the wheel for who it is that's on which side of the topic? Icarus, DS9, done. Debate over.
That's pretty.
That's not even fair. Oh, okay, so you know what? We're gonna go real roulette on this one. So we have Nikki as an option. We have Lint as an option. We have Muttley as an option. And then myself and Jay. So let's go ahead and let's find out who's gonna be on... okay, so since DS9 showed up first, this person is going to be on the... has to discuss the pro DS9 side of it. And the first contestant is Nikki Daly.
I'm good with that.
And now for the first person on the Babylon 5 side. Let's see what we get. Oh, fuck. You or me, Jay?
I don't really care.
You know what? We'll decide that in a minute. All right, and joining Nikki Daly on the side of Deep Space Nine will be... Okay, this is weird. It says Lint, but the needle is right on the line between Lint and Muttley.
Uh-oh.
Do either of you have a preference?
I know pretty much sweet fuck all about Babylon 5.
Well, I'm a big Babylon 5 fan, so maybe it would be easier that way.
There we go. Let's get people who are actually knowledgeable on the sides to where they belong. So it will be Muttley and Nikki versus Lint and... You know what, Jay? I'm putting this one on you initially. If we need to tag out later, then we will.
Okay.
God, this is so weird, Kenny.
All right, so with that, we are going to... You know what? There are people out there who don't know as much about Babylon 5, so let's go ahead and start with that side of it. What is your case for why you should rather want to live in the Babylon 5 universe?
Should I come at this like I don't know what's going on in Star Trek?
Oh, no. Full knowledge is available. This is entirely
Okay.
metagame, so if you want to trash on one in lieu of the other, I'll allow it.
Boy, this is actually this is kind of a tough one because unlike Star Trek DS9, Babylon 5 is really kind of short on techno-babble space magic. Now, that being said, you it's definitely more real. And so I think it's, you're going to get what you expect on a day-to-day. Does that mean it's super special? No, but, it's... It also the other problem with it I love Babylon 5, but damn, is it like the post scarcity? No, but God, this is a hard one. Anyone got anything else?
Okay, what would a benefit to being in the Babylon 5 universe actually be? Like why should someone want to be there?
From the human civilization standpoint, you're still very much in a frontier kind of environment. You're not, the humans are not the top of the food chain, but that means there's still a lot of things to explore and discover. And real things. It just everything feels more visceral in B5. It just doesn't feel like everything is just handed to you.
So more grounded, more of a reality based, an easier adjustment from today, you're saying?
To me, it's always felt like more believable. Okay, well, we do have one person here in the chat that says, Ivanova, enough said.
And of course, it's main gun. You know, I could see some people saying that, but you know what? I think there just might be a pretty good counter from the DS9 side for that one.
Yeah, I like both Ivanova and Delenn, but yeah, I think DS9 has this in spades. I'm sorry.
So,
I think that I don't know. B5 always felt more real, like that the universe existed outside, as a thing that was going on outside of the plot of the show.
it was just a small glimpse into a larger galactic play kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, things were going on. The particularly when you deal with even though it was written as the allegory with the Centauri and the Narn, but the humans came into a universe that was ticking along long before them. So stepping into that when they came on the field, this is sort of one of the critiques of all of Star Trek, is that there does seem to be a lot of level balancing between your A players in the Star Trek universe. And when you compare that to Babylon 5, there is big discrepancies, between the big interstellar players. Even the Narns, I believe, had had artificial grav, and the humans didn't have that.
Nope. Narns and humans were the two that didn't have it.
Are they okay? Did we ever get? Go ahead.
Go ahead. I would say that the Narns, I think in the the bridge area, it was technically, I guess, but the rest of the ship, no, it was not anti-grav.
Okay, I'm trying to
the gravity generators.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't recall there were too many scenes, particularly not long ones, in which we got to see a lot of stuff go on the Narn ships.
No, you mostly saw them blowing up.
Yes, but it was clear that the Centauri did.
Now, would the DS9 side like to go against a couple of the points that were made there?
Oh, quite happily. In the sense that with DS9 is just a snapshot of what you see from the entire Star Trek universe. What's happening is so much more than what happens on the station. Even though humans on, say, the main flagship or the Enterprise, etc., live in a post-scarcity society, that isn't really the case on the fringe. DS9 shows that even though there are places that are, as of yet, not very good to actually live in, it can get a lot better. It can get to a point where you can actually have a proper post-scarcity society where people can develop their morals and actually develop themselves as just human beings or other beings without having to deal with things like war, etc. Something that DS9 showed very clearly was that even though on the surface level you have a lot of polish in the Star Trek universe, there's still a lot going on that is still raw. War, different conflicts. Say, for example, something like, how it's called, the thing with Bashir, and him being a genetically modified human, although by no choice of his own, it still affects him. You don't see it as much, but it's still there. What DS9 shows, though, is that you can move past that. You can get to a point where you do not have the need for a war anymore. You don't have a need for anything when it comes to, say, the things like hunger. You don't have a need for warmongers. You don't have a need for gods to help guide you along. All those things are just things that you move past. And that is pretty much what DS9 is. It is the way to the future. And it's a future that's very bright if they keep going the way that they were doing in DS9.
Isn't that almost a little too rosy, though?
Well,
Well,
you look at it on the face value of it, yes. You start digging into a little bit more of the lore, not so much.
no, because the rosy parts are the parts where you're trying to get. However, if you look at what's actually happening, Nog loses his leg. They're on a space station that used to be manned by slaves who died in droves just to keep the space station running, or rather the refinery running. You have things like almost genocide of the changelings. You have all these conflicts, you have all these things going on, since they are, in fact, in a war zone. They're in an occupied space station, which they don't actually know how long they can stay in. With Bajor, they don't know how long Bajor will actually hold. For all they know, it could be one day, the changelings coming in, having one more weapon, and all of a sudden, the Cardassians and the changelings, along with the Jem'Hadar, would simply just take over Bajor. They would grab a foothold in order to just get anywhere. The only thing really keeping them afloat is that they know that they have this other vision of it. They have a vision of a brighter future, not a future where all this will be for naught. And that is pretty much where I see them being more brighter, not as in rose-tinted, but as in we really want to get here. We will pay almost anything in order to get to this point.
Would have more to say, but Leon, I think you made them all.
Well, well, here's a question. What about the Maquis and their role to play in everything? And is there an equivalent in Babylon 5 for comparison?
Well, certainly
Yeah.
the Maquis thing is going to be interesting. It's like, they definitely felt that they were sold out for the purposes of the larger galactic politics. I mean, are they the only ones who are not really keen on the, being the pawns on the board for the galactic powers?
There are a lot of different factions that are, I wouldn't really say tired of it per se, but they are on the verge of, we do not really want to be part of this anymore. However,
There's
you
ones
don't
that
really
just-
see.
I was gonna say,
Go on.
there's ones, Leon, that are just like, oh, the Federation. Oh, we trade with them, but that's as far as it goes.
Now you have them, and then you have the things
Great.
like, say, the big empires, the Klingons. You have the Andorians, the Vulcans, all of those. if there's anything where people want to leave them, they will deal with that themselves. It isn't an issue for the rest of the Federation per se.
And I
And
forgot to
you gotta-
unmute there for a moment.
I was gonna say, also on top of that is Federation's a conglomerate of planets. I mean, yeah, it started off with, a handful, but it moved on and it's grown since its early days into a much, much bigger group. And it's very, very diverse too. So
Of course, we have the thing in Babylon 5. Even though when we get up to season 4, season 5 with the Interstellar Alliance, and you've got the League of Non-Aligned Worlds that joined in, we don't have a good feel for what that structure is like, other than it is I guess in some ways it's a military alliance with loose political ties, at least from the outset.
I would agree with that. It would be, and actually, I would say it was more a loose political alliance because most of the non-aligned worlds were around, or they're either mixed between like human level development at that point in time, or they were like caught between like the development tech levels of like the Narn and the Centauri. But they're still missing certain areas out of their tech. Across the Federation, on the other hand, anyone in that Federation has access to all that tech.
And so this actually does go back to what I was saying with what appears to be the leveling of the technology amongst the A players. No one really seems to have an advantage in the Star Trek universe until there's the outside force.
That is both true and completely untrue. Because the main players in Star Trek universe, or at least the Star Trek galaxy actually going on, those aren't really the Federation. They're not the Romulans. They're not any of those smaller factions. The main players would be things like Q. The completely over the top, I could just destroy this entire galaxy or make it not even have happened at all with a snap of my fingers. All these, the Federation, the Romulans, the Kazon, the Jem'Hadar, the Changelings, all of those are small specks of dust who think that they actually have something to prove. But the power leveling, if the Federation, or in this case, if humanity had not been impeded and not been allowed to use cloaks, the humanity in this case would get a lot farther or further. They would have been able to do a lot more than any of the other races in there. And that's something where I feel like we have to actually take into account the political games that have been taking place between the different factions as well, not just the power leveling as a world.
The one thing I will say for Babylon 5, unlike Star Trek, is and the Q is the prime example of this. The universe is not filled with hyper powerful spoiler races. I mean, even the at the end of the series, when the first ones left, they were effectively not involved with anything because they were so far beyond the younger races. you're just not going to get a thing like a Q showing up and threatening the entire human race with a trial for crimes of the past.
But it's not just threatening with trials of the past. It's also nudging into a future where they can be more like him, where they can let go of all their selfishness, where they can stop being a greedy species, and instead learning that there are things more important than these material needs. Clinging onto the past because these parts of your past are so important to you, but then forgetting the actual important things of it. Q brings them down to the most base and bad parts of their past. He tries to show the worst parts of them, the worst parts of humanity, but he doesn't do it in order to be evil. He does it to show them what they must overcome.
Are we talking about a different Q? The one that goes around tormenting races?
The Qs are assholes, and yes, they torment races. But what Leon says, it's basically, oh, no, you guys aren't the big kids on the block. We are.
What would the Calamarain say about that?
Oh, God, no. No.
Oh?
Well, we don't know what anyone
I
would
have
really...
that fucking ditty stuck in my head, because it's not even a song, it's a ditty.
Well, I'm not talking about the ditty.
You're thinking about the Calamarain, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, not the Calamarain.
The Calamarain, the episode is where Q got kicked out of the continuum, and then he started getting attacked by the Calamarain because
Yep.
spent millennium abusing them.
I remember it now.
Yeah, which we do not know what Q actually was doing. We know that he was tormenting them. We don't know if he was tormenting them in the sense of, oh, here's a fun ant. Let me just, poke it around a bit before I step on it. Or if it was more, let me see what they will do if I do this. Will they react with violence? Or will they react with trying to negotiate?
I just never got that kind of read from Q. It always sounded like he was in there to stir the pot.
That is how the character was initially set up, but is that how they remained?
I mean, he did have quite an interesting, spotty character arc over, three different complete seasons, and several episodes.
Let's take one very important thing. The Borg. Q was the one who introduced humanity to the Borg. Well, not introduced humanity per se, but he introduced the main part of humanity to the Borg. And that's something that he was trying to say. Yeah, you think you're tough. You think that you can do all these things. You think you're the shit. Well, I'm sorry, kiddos. There are things that you can't even imagine. And I'm going to have to show you in order to teach you a lesson.
Was this in order to teach the lesson maliciously? Because they're like, oh, you don't believe me. I'm going to show you, and you're going to get your asses handed to you.
Well, if it was malicious...
hold on. I'm going to say, to be fair, I don't... Yes, there was some probably undertones of maliciousness, but I don't think Q would have let it go too far because he likes playing with the Enterprise. So
I think that Q saw in Picard someone who actually had the seeds in him in order to be something more than just human. He gave the power to Riker, but Riker was just, well, not childish with it, but he was not mature enough as a person to understand that that power that he was given was worthless. It didn't mean anything. Had Picard been given that power, at least prior to the later movies, he wouldn't have done anything. He would have given it back.
How do we reconcile that with the one episode in which we had the girl who was a Q who was raised as human? And it's like, we have to take her back to the continuum. We can't possibly allow her to live in this realm if she's going to use those powers.
Well, in that case, was she supervised? Did she do this so she was actually a Q alone, like Q was? Or did she do it as a fun experiment for them, where they could just keep tabs on her, see what she was doing, and Q could just take her Q powers away at any time?
But when she decided that she couldn't say no any further, then they decided that they had to take her.
Well, all right,
Yes.
all right. Think of it like this. Hold on, think of it like this. So, all right, there are some excruciatingly primitive cultures on this planet. Sentinel Island comes to mind on that one. They're still living back in the tribal days because they kill anyone who tries to approach the island. So, say something like with Sentinel Island where they were open to learn something. So we send them this, couple really wonderful pieces of tech, teaching them how to use them. It could be military, it could be medicine, it could be anything. Everything has a danger point. How dangerous is it for one person to become a god if only one person properly learns and understands something? And that has happened in recent times.
Well, in this case, it would more be that this would happen in a lab. These people would not actually be able to become gods just in and of itself. The way that the Q worked was that they still did work somewhat as a group. But as a group, they can take away the powers. They can observe everything since, omniscient. And with that, was she ever really a Q other than just in name?
She had the powers of a Q.
Well, if I'd done a police uniform, does that make me a cop?
I'm not sure that analogy holds here.
But in this case,
you could present yourself as one, but that doesn't mean that you have the authority thereof. You didn't get issued your police radio. As we see that this girl actually did get issued her Q powers.
yes, but at the same time, what powers does it actually mean? Or rather, what powers does a cop have?
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, but with this, her powers to the Q would be kind of like us giving a kid somewhere in a sandbox a plastic shovel anytime. She has no way of actually causing permanent damage in any way whatsoever. Giving her that role, giving her that power, that privilege for a while, does not really actually affect the Q. It doesn't really affect the universe. If she messes anything up, they can just bring it back to how it was. We do have to consider the power levels here.
Unfortunately, I don't think there was ever any indication that one Q was more or less powerful than another.
Well, in this case, how can Q give Q powers? Just Q alone. But at the same time, the Continuum could decide to actually take away his powers.
Which they did.
And they also gave them back.
Okay.
Which would mean that if this works the way that it seems, well, from what we can see there, Vosh didn't really have full Q status. She was a Q per se. She was a Q in name. She had the powers. But she alone was not actually a danger to the Continuum. There were so many Q and the Q Continuum that no matter what she did, it would still be as a probationary period.
I mean, didn't they explore that in Voyager with the War of the Continuum? Because it actually took a group to actually influence the Continuum.
Yeah, somewhat. And with that,
I'm just trying to I'm trying to remember my Star Trek side of it, so.
Yes, there was the Q Continuum Civil War that took place during Voyager. That, if I remember correctly, ultimately ended by a Q and a female Q getting it on in front of Janeway.
Yep.
Yeah, poor Janeway. She's already witnessed enough.
All the good bits happen in the Continuum, so you know. So if I may briefly take this off of Q for a moment, the one thing I can tell you that the Babylon 5 universe is better is you have a 100% chance of not having a transporter accident.
I'll give him that one.
But aren't there problems with their own methods of travel?
You mean hyperspace?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's any better or worse than warp travel.
Well, you say that, but yeah, hyperspace has, I think, a few more issues than warp drive does.
In what way does hyperspace work in Babylon 5?
That's a really good question. Babylon 5, unlike Star Trek, often did not spend much time trying to explain the mechanics of the universe because the show was more focused on the plot and the characters. I think the only thing they ever said about hyperspace was that the gates were made out of a element called Plutonium 40, was it? Plutonium 80, maybe? Other than that, there wasn't too much about hyperspace in the show.
Just that it worked.
Yes.
So in essentiality, we don't know if it's like a lawnmower engine keeping a fucking pram going up and downstream, or if it's like Star Trek, where we actually have explanations for this works, and it works this, or...
From what I remember from Babylon 5, I mean, yeah, granted, it did not go into the deep mechanics of hyperspace. It's just like, hey, it works. But there were things that it was more or less kind of almost tunneling through space-time, but you just had engines that would open up a portal, similar to...
Yeah. Once we're talking Dune logic.
Once you were in hyperspace, you were there.
And they still had to deal with the same thing they'd have to do with the normal space, you know, gravitational anomalies, stuff like that. I I mean, there was still risk, but the risks were insanely more magnified in hyperspace than they were in normal space in, say, Star Trek, because you had the explanation, yes, but there was stuff that just worked in Star Trek because space is fucking huge.
Well, don't forget that in the Star Trek universe, warp drive does damage the subspace, which is the primary
Yes.
means of communication in faster light and things like that. So it's actually the best. However, it's more aptly explained than what Babylon 5 is explained.
Well, so there have been explanations and little tidbits given that even the chat has picked up on inside of Babylon 5, where, as such, the need for the navigational beacons, and if you lose that contact, you can easily get lost. Not unlike somewhere else that relies on a parallel plane dimensional type of travel.
Guy in a golden
This
chair.
whole conversation now, because I thought we were sticking to actual science fiction.
Well,
I'm just noting the parallels here.
I see you there.
The storytelling mode in Babylon 5 and Star Trek seemed to always be fundamentally different to me in the way of universe building. Because as I mentioned before, is that you go in just assuming that these things do the things they're supposed to do, and you don't need the plots were never hung around the explanations of the technology most of the time. Whereas in Trek, you literally have dozens of episodes hinging on how did this thing malfunction and what jargon can we throw in there to make it sound like it works.
Which, in this case, it's something to, well, just to bring it back to topic, which universe is best to live in? If you have something where it's a technology that it just works, it's always worked, or it's worked before, it works now, it will work in the future, that's something where you could potentially have different things that could completely mess it up. Just to take an example from another franchise here really quickly, Stargate and the Stargates.
yep.
But that's a discussion for later. The main thing with it that I see is if you have a universe where you know you will have malfunctions, and you know that you always have people finding solutions for these malfunctions, especially people who have access to both diagnostics and the possibility or the ability to send those instructions anywhere in the universe, or not universe, but in the galaxy, pretty damn fast. It's something where if something happens, you won't get stranded. You won't be stuck with a problem that no one actually knows what it is, because someone hasn't, or no one has actually seen this issue in a millennia or longer.
I feel like you're referencing something else there as well.
Oh no, that's 40 millennia.
You can watch the show upstairs. Over here.
Oh. Where do we go next then?
Well, what other avenues make one franchise, one show more appealing to live in than the other? And we've addressed the technical side. We've gone a bit on that bit, but let's be a little more base. Let's be a little more realistic in it. As a normal, everyday person, which society, which show setup is more appealing to you, and why?
I'm not sure that Babylon 5 has much to to offer on a day-to-day thing, it's particularly if you're in the Federation proper, it's like you've got all the stuff you could possibly want from the replicator all the time. I mean, people only seem to work in things that they want to work in. Where you definitely have in Babylon 5 the a real issue of, classes and jobs and workaday stuff. That's a bit harder to sell than, press the button and get food from the magic light drawer.
That's pretty much what I was going to bring up is, in general, day to day from what we see in Star Trek versus day to day in Babylon 5 is, I mean, yes, there are probably still the dredges of society in Star Trek, and I'm pretty sure there is, from what I remember from some of the obscure lore. But everyone gets to eat. Everyone gets clothes. Everyone has a chance to work. In Babylon 5, as we've seen on the station itself, there are dredges of society. I mean, it's not to say, living like that's a bad thing or anything. It's just these people were fighting to survive on a space station that has a lot of amenities. But you have to have money.
Well, keep in mind that with Star Trek, you're not just limited to the Federation. You can go to Ferenginar. You can go to Kronos.
Even then, though,
You can, but would you?
I would still give the edge to the outer Star Trek, because you can live as hard of a life or as easy of a life as you want in Star Trek. You can become a settler of a new world. We don't really have ready access to replicators. You don't have access to all those easy things. It could be that you just have a base supply to begin with, but within a year, you need to make sure that your harvests are actually working out well, or you will be needing help. And considering the distances, you might actually need help from someone who is a month away.
And that's another thing too is, I mean, yeah, having the replicators is nice and all, but that's still it's not real food. It's enough to nourish you and keep you alive, but it's not what we all like is good food.
It's not the culinary delight like you would get from, say, Cisco's in New Orleans.
Or
Yeah.
Chef on Enterprise.
Until you scanned it in.
Not even then.
No.
The replicator can't replicate living matter.
All right. So, here's the issue with replicators. It's a Xerox machine. It's a copy. You're making a copy of whatever it is. So, say you got a particularly generic, roast beef. I mean, yeah, it tastes good, but you go to the restaurant, it tastes better, not only because it's real, but maybe the chef changed something just slightly with seasoning or something, or even the way he cooked it, and it tastes better.
Is this meta lore? Because
No,
No?
this is actually in Trek, established throughout multiple series, where Cisco's father, he didn't operate a replimat. He cooked with real ingredients.
Yeah.
okay, so he decided on a niche business.
Yes.
That
Also, we have a direct thing where Deanna Troy is talking about it, because she mentions, I want, was it a chocolate sundae? And doesn't want it according to this perfectly well measured, according to all dietary needs, all that stuff. She wants it done properly. And the replicator doesn't actually recognize her request.
well, So
I'm still trying to figure out how Janeway was able to burn roasts and stuff in her replicator.
It's Janeway.
Did someone scan in a burned roast? Just to troll?
I wouldn't put it past Taurus to do that.
I was about ready to say I wouldn't put it past a couple people in the Star Trek universe.
Well, I mean, the thing is that the temperature is kind of irrelevant from the thing itself. You could order it at any temperature. I guess you could order your Earl Grey plasma. Why not?
No, but the question is, in that case, how the replicators actually work with how you program in food. Because a lot of times they try to make it out that you can actually program in anything, but how does the programming actually take place? How does it work? Is it that you enter a number of parameters? You enter a number of parameters, and you then get that result, as in, it is a piece of meat that has been in the oven for this and that long, or is it that you actually program what kind of surface you want it to be too?
Yeah, they had the recipe settings, and that was the thing, is that's what they would actually use to put in something new into the replicator system is, well, what's the recipe? And then if they didn't have, like, say that there was an ingredient that wasn't an established or known ingredient, they would actually tie into the transporter system and actually get the pattern of that item from those sorts of means. Because keep in mind, as it was explained, the replicator does rely on part of the transporter technology as well.
Didn't we also
And
have
same with the holographic suites and the holodecks.
Yeah, right. The water in the holodecks is water. But also, didn't we have in season 2 where Riker said to, was it one of the cat hyena races, that we have something that is as tasty as meat, but doesn't enslave animals?
Yes, that is from the replicators. Is it gives the taste of actual meat, it gives the texture, but it is not meat itself, but it gives all the illusion of it while providing the necessary sustenance. That is replicated food in a nutshell.
At what point is something that's replicated not equivalent to the original? Is a replicated shirt not the same shirt?
Okay, well, there's a difference. Hold on, there's a difference there. You're comparing something like food, which everyone has their own taste. A shirt is a white good. Food isn't.
No, but even then, we're talking about replicator resolution. If you had a replicator that works exactly like the transporter system, that can go down to, well, every single little atom, pretty much. You won't have any change. It will be the same thing. But that's also why you have the transport buffer, so that you can transport that amount of information. With a replicator, you're dealing with a lot less resolution. Sure, you can get it to seem somewhat similar, but with saying that, you can't get down to a resolution where you can go, or you can't replicate every single fiber in the same place.
Well,
but you don't. Oh, go ahead.
And there were characters who would actually, by taste alone, by actually ingesting the food, they could tell the difference between a replicated item and an actual organically grown original item. So the replicator wasn't perfect in that aspect.
This seems to be very contrary to how the replicator is sold as how it's supposed to be.
All right. the point. All right, basically, kind of the point I was making was, all right, food is very much to taste. So if you got kind of a bland taste for food, you just don't care as long as it's edible, and it might, spike. Oh, hey, that was kind of good. Sure, fine. But like a shirt, it's a white good. It's a mass-produced item most of the time. So it's a lot easier to reproduce a white good than it is something that is catered to a specific type of taste, etc.
You could still cook in the Star Trek universe. You could just replicate uncooked food.
Correct. But
then
you
again-
also had the hydroponic space, and if you were planet side, you still had the ability to locally produce whatever ingredients you wanted that would actually grow in and propagate in whatever environment you're in. So it wasn't everyone had the replicator wholesale, no matter what, that was it. It was an option, but not the only option.
I don't know. Is that the difference between the Walmart food center and Whole Foods?
That is actually a good way to put it. Where the replicator would be your Walmart specials, cheap, easy, and quick.
And if you want niche, you can still go and get your, free-range eggplant.
Yeah.
Or you're O'Brien, and you just hope for a water breakout so you can get rations.
Starfleet field rations.
Now, but I think that the replicators actually show one of the darkest sides to Star Trek as well. You seem to have a lot of people getting used to replicator food and not so much appreciate actual food anymore. It's somewhat like imagine people getting used to McDonald's and they don't really know what things are supposed to taste like. They've eaten this concoction day in and day out since I don't know how long. They might have grown up with a replicator. But with that said, they never really actually enjoy proper food, as in real cooked and grown food.
You sound like an essentialist. Are you going to take over Ryza?
Nah, not yet. Gonna need the Riker to actually find all the STDs first. But it's something where it could be a turn downwards. It could be something where people don't feel the need to actually grow their own food. They don't feel the need to actually be able to have that experience.
Oh, yes, and Muttley, you forgot that if you're going to use fast food as references, you need to use the proper one. Burger King.
Hashtag no BK in prison.
Depends on where you are. Let's say Taco Bell, just because.
So, I guess I gotta if we're gonna go down the food road, just remember in the Babylon 5 universe, unlike our current universe, you can still get Zima.
Oh God, that's right.
That was just a wrong statement to say.
I guess the follow-up question to that would be, would you want Zima?
Hey, if the Narns could eat raw spoo, somebody must want Zima.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to hit X to doubt on that one.
Or rather, veering off the topic of food here now, there is actually one thing that I know you and I have actually been talking somewhat briefly about this before, Jared. In the Star Trek universe, you could have any job at all. and you would not have to actually worry about wearing yourself out. Because if you were to job or work a job that's repetitive, that's something where it's really unergonomic, where you will get, well, where you today would get messed up after just a few years, that wouldn't really happen in the Star Trek universe. They can fix that. It doesn't matter if it's unergonomic. Your back hurts. Okay, we'll fix that. Your knee is hurting. Oh, don't worry, we'll fix that.
You completely wreck your spine. We'll replicate you one.
Close enough.
But you can't replicate living cells. Except
No, you don't have to. It's better if you don't, and just use the spine so that the body can actually then take it over.
did they not replicate a spinal cord for Worf, though?
Graft. Graft for the neurological side, and the bones themselves were reproduced in whole. So it was basically a transplant, but not a 100% transplant. But
More like a prosthetic.
Yeah. Well, and that there goes to show that even with the advanced tech that Trek had, it wasn't perfect.
Or they were trying to prevent them from writing themselves into a hole where nothing matters about anything because you can replicate anything.
Except a brain.
We could look at it like this too. With Klingons are a warrior species. This might not actually work for something like a human, given our somewhat weaker physiology.
Yeah, they heavily implied that it was a Klingon thing because of all the redundancies in the species.
That if it had happened to anyone else of the crew, they'd be dead.
But then, of course, we have. We're not going to talk about that show. So let's put that one aside for now. And no, not that show. The other one we're not talking about.
Oh, it's at
The
that.
other one we're not talking about.
That doesn't really narrow it down all that far. All right. So, you know what? Let me go ahead and do this. I'm going to bring up the roulette. We're gonna change up the topic again once I actually get the page to load, so I can actually hit the button.
The Babylon 5 universe is, I think, way more down and dirty than your average everyday Star Trek. Oh, someone actually brought up Zima.
Holy hell.
Hey, can you see if someone's selling Crystal Pepsi?
I have standards.
Wait, you? Standards? Oh, wait, yeah. Subfleet bastards.
Where can I buy Crystal Pepsi?
And oddly enough, he will find it in 3, 2, and 1.
The Google says, I'm sorry, we didn't exist in the 80s.
Alright, so let's see what we come up with for the more appropriate talk of it right now. And, wrong button cares. Oh, you know what? We've already kind of started getting into this one. Better technology overall. I mean, is that even really a discussion between these two?
That's not really a discussion, because it's like comparing where we were 50, 60 years ago versus where we are now.
Yeah.
drastically different style stuff.
I mean, unless you want to try to do a comparison with the Minbari or the Vorlons, but again, you're dealing with a show
for fuck's
that
sake.
it never really explained. Never tried to explain the magic. Oh my God!
But also a lot with, but also with a lot of the technology too. Saying Babylon 5, it's actually just beefed up versions of a lot of the stuff we have now.
Yep. Energy weapons and hyperspace is kind of what is tacked on to Babylon 5.
Energy weapons, no, I can't give that one to you.
No.
The hyperspace, definitely, 100%. And the gravity plating, those two I can give you. The energy weapons, no, because we've already started working on our own versions of that. So,
All right. Well, you know what then? Let's go ahead and let's change things up a bit more here. We are going to ignore Deep Space Nine and Babylon 5, and let's see at least them pitted against each other. Let's get 1, 2, and 3 full spins. All right, let's compare Stargate with 2 and 3. No. J32, they're not techno mages, they're tech priests. Yeah, no, we're not going to compare it to Babylon 5.
Those the botherers.
Let's compare SG1 with, you know what, let's compare that to DS9 on the tech side of things.
that's a little bit closer.
That's a lot harder.
Oh, yeah, that's why I said it's a little bit closer on the tech level. At least once you get past, when we get our own ships.
Well, because keep in mind, so the SGC is a bit more of a fantasy possibility coupled with what would happen if some ancient, highly advanced species just landed and immediately died on our planet and left us full access to what they have.
Oh, please put me on Stargate side. Please put me on Stargate side.
Oh, I'm letting you guys pick which side you want to be on this one.
I am actually currently watching SG1, so I'm kind of up on my knowledge right now.
Oh no, Jay, I know what you were talking about in the chat there. I was just having a little fun with a little bit of random reference that ends up happening every now and then.
Oh, and FYI, me and you need to talk later.
Okay.
All right, so we got...
It's not about Zima, is it?
No. It's about Babylon 5, because if I would have been on Babylon 5 side, there was so much more I would have opened up to.
Oh, I'm not saying you can't. If you want to go back to that, if you want to change things up,
No, we're good.
If you want to, okay. So Stargate Tech, who wants to join Nikki on that side of the coin?
Well, Lint, it's up to you.
Sure. I can go Stargate side. Sure.
No, you can choose either way.
Yeah.
I'm fine either way.
So, how is it that Stargate has the better tech? Go ahead, Nikki. What you got?
Oh, so their version of FTL, well, slightly more dangerous than warp drive, is a lot, I would say, quicker. For the main reason is, yes, we have Stargate travel, which is instantaneous between different parts of the galaxy and even another galaxy, but the hyperdrive can do that too, just takes time. As opposed to Star Trek, I mean, you saw it yourselves with Voyager. You get from the Delta Quadrant to the Alpha Quadrant it would take 75 years straight line. That's unacceptable. That's very unacceptable.
Now, also speaking of Stargate, once you get to Atlantis, how long did it take to get from the Milky Way to the Pegasus Galaxy? Was it 2 weeks or 2 months?
2 weeks.
Yeah, a couple weeks on the Daedalus by hyperspace.
That's also providing they didn't have a ZPM. If they had a ZPM, it would be shaved down to a week, I think, if I remember right.
So, yep, you definitely got the faster regular space travel, plus the Stargates.
Are you done?
By all means.
Also, I was going to say I got one more on that one too. Ring platforms and transporter technology that doesn't fail.
That they showed on screen as not failing.
It's a malfunction.
I will make an exception. It can fail, but nowhere near as badly as it can in Star Trek.
I just want to make a point on that. Some time went by, and the entire gate network didn't work with the coordinates that they already had. They had a gate stuck on Earth that they didn't even know about because of the safeties built into the gate system. I would say that there's some things there to work out. However, just speaking from DS9 and the strong points of DS9, in DS9, it's actually an exact science how things work. Well, at least in universe. It's something where if something goes wrong, they can often troubleshoot it. And even if it's something like, I don't know, nanobots in that franchise too, they can still figure it out. It can still be fixed. And it's something where you can actually teach people how it works. You can teach people how to do these things, and you can, well, overall just go through them and understand them if you're in the universe, and you have the proclivity to actually do so.
That completely exists within Stargate. Besides the fact that the SGC programmed its own DHD.
I was about to say, yeah, in Stargate, we actually built our own dialing device and calculated for stellar drift. Once we figured out, oh, hey, that's the reason why we can't lock onto these gates.
Are you talking about an SG-1 now?
Yeah.
Yes, it would be an SG-1.
Well, the first things that they did in order to actually get the gate to work was move it by hand. You don't really need a lot of stuff to work on when you just need to know that this symbol needs to go here. We need to add power, as opposed to.
Yeah, but you would also have to know the address and have the power requirements. The DHD and the gate aren't technically exclusive of each other; they are intertwined.
But at the same time,
but you could still
it's the reason
operate.
why you had to make a computer.
Yeah, but you could still operate a gate without the computer and without a DHD.
Yes.
Right, you just have to dial everything manually.
Yeah, the gates were working back in the 40s. It's not really advanced technology. The only thing that the DHD does is make it easier to input the coordinates. The real technology is in the gate itself.
Actually, the DHD does more than just allow you to put the coordinates in. It is both the power source and does all of the drift calculations for you.
Including also doing the calculations to, i.e., say, oh, no, you're not going to this planet right now because the wormhole will go straight into a solar flare. Or go through the sun. Recent episode I watched just recently.
Yeah, just got to be careful around random black holes.
That too.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to open up an interdimensional rift.
Oh, you won't have time to know what's going on anyway. With that, though, in Star Trek, any child there is taught these things. Children, from they are actual children, are taught how these things work, at least on a very basic level. You have people in Star Trek who could construct a phaser from just knowing what base materials they need. They can construct it a lot more if they just need if they just know what it is they need. It's something that it's built into their society. It isn't something that is not hidden away, but something that's so far beyond their comprehension when it comes to just how it actually works that everyone can know about it.
And another thing to point out is going to another bit of tech that you guys had also mentioned, the ring transporters, not as safe as you would think. I mean, how many Jaffa did the SGC decapitate by use of the ring system?
Mm-hmm.
It's got its flaws, but as long as you're within that circle, you're pretty much fine.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're as safe as an elevator is, as long as you're inside the elevator.
Right?
Except an elevator can't.
We got.
Go
Don't bullshit. You get an elevator with a faulty door sensor, you're losing whatever opinion you left in that door.
Yeah, but the rest of you won't be sent 20 kilometers away.
Fair.
You still have somewhat of a chance of actually being saved, as opposed to, oh, yeah, you just happen to have your foot there. I'm sorry to say your foot is on a spaceship now, in orbit.
But it's a spaceship. You've got an infirmary.
I want to point out.
Well, no. World transport ships did not have an infirmary.
I want to point out one more.
They had the sarcophagus.
Yeah, but that drained your
Yes, they had
humanity. Must be great for politicians. It's one of those things. Speaking of safety features, you have a gate that, when it opens, throws out a huge bloom that disintegrates everything along its way. And where you can't actually tell if you're going to go through the gate and it's safe on the other side, or you're trying to go through the gate and you say boom on an iris.
That's why there's some stuff called probes and a mount.
Well, so that is stuff that the SGC decided to use, but how many of the other users of the Gate network actually would have that or even think of that?
And also, remember,
Exactly.
at the height of the use of the Gate network, it's like these were all ancients.
So yeah, back in the day, it wasn't a common occurrence to say, "Oh, hey, there might be someone with a force field or an iris that is going to completely kill us." I mean, I don't know the exact time frame, but Atlantis eventually did put a force field around the gate, but they probably originally never had it until they had a couple incidences where it's like, "Oh, we better put something up there that won't allow matter to reintegrate."
If I remember correctly, it was during the first war with the Wraith, when it was the Ancients fighting it.
Even then, though, matter reintegrating isn't really the end-all be-all, as is seen in, what is it, season 7? 8? With the radiation beam.
When they put the fire the particle accelerator at the gate.
Yeah. Yep. So
yeah,
even then, you're not really safe.
It's not. I'm gonna say it's not the end all be all, but there are ways around certain things, certain niche situations like that. Per se, like they launched it into space and let it blow up away from Earth instead of on the planet.
and still not really knowing exactly what was happening with it. The technology wasn't really understood.
Well, yeah, it took them a while. And it's like, we need to get this out of here.
Well, of course, the flip side of that is that, yes, even with having access to Naquita and, reprogramming gate crystals, they're not, the Stargate universe is not making gates. No one's making the gates.
Well, no. The Tolans made a gate.
Did they say that they made it, or did they go pick one up?
They made one. They actually made one.
And we also have the one episode where what's his name, the Descendant Ancient, made a gate.
Yeah, but again, that was an Ascended Ancient versus a extremely advanced version of human society.
Right. Well, the Tolans were easily 1,000 years ahead of Earth.
It's almost like they had the same start that we had, just no Dark Age.
Exactly. I'm a firm believer on the fact that if we didn't have the Dark Ages, we'd actually be an interplanetary society right now.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Well, and then going back to Star Trek, they didn't really have another, or they had a bit of a dark age there. You had the Third World War, the eugenics wars. That was the thing there, but they learned from it. They learned to see past that and actually get to the point where they could reach the stars and become a proper, interplanetary society, as well as being proper explorers.
Yeah, but Cochrane just did it for the money and women.
Well, one Cochrane did it for the men and the women. The other one did it because he wanted the Vulcan's ship.
Well, the other thing is that, is there like a kindling point in technology in which once you reach it, as long as you don't wipe out all of society, you inevitably march forward? The Dark Ages, that the real Dark Ages, was still Iron Age.
But it really comes down to what people survive, what ideas get to survive. Because if we look at something like the Goa'uld and the Jafar, they have advanced way far. Their technology is, tremendous. They haven't made all of it themselves, but they still live with that technology. Except the Jafar don't really understand it, and the Goa'uld are, not really willing to actually share.
Here's my issue on that one with the Goa'uld. Yes, the Goa'uld had gotten technology, but unlike the humans who kind of had their own way about going and stealing technology or acquiring technology or learning about new technology, the Goa'uld basically just stole all that knowledge from whatever host they were in. It's like, oh, hey, this is cool shit. And then they may have created something kind of new, but you're talking like many, many millennials, and their technology never really changed. We got the thing with humans on Earth, the Tari. We're going in, no spaceships, no nothing. We just have more advanced technology than the rest of the human races out there. And then we jump up to having spaceships and other things that are cool. And we're still advancing even after we got the cool stuff. I mean, take the Prometheus. Take the Prometheus, for example, versus a Daedalus class battlecruiser. Quite a drastic difference in technology and advancement between the two ships.
But in this, it's not just the advancement per se in that case. What you also have is that the Goa'uld take technology, they add new technology. You do have Goa'uld scientists that actually do their own stuff too, not just from the hosts. But
I agree, but it took basically Anubis coming back from the dead to start heavily advancing the Goa'uld to where they actually were starting to threaten one of the more powerful couple of the more powerful races in the Milky Way.
yes, but as I was saying with that, with Anubis and all that, that came later. What happened before was them starting to enslave people. They weren't really a main power during that period. They were fighting others. They just happened to come out on top. But the way that they did that was that they kept it, well, feudal pretty much. They knew about the technology. Some servants knew about the technology. The Jaffa knew about it, but didn't understand it. They could keep advancing their technology, as could be seen with some of them, but they didn't really they didn't really have the drive to advance it very far.
Well, another thing, like even something as simple as a written language and communication was kept from the subjects of some of the Goa'uld species under their dominion.
Yes, as can be seen in Stargate.
I mean,
And that's
oh, go ahead.
You go. I was going to go on a tangent.
Well, certainly within the era of the System Lords, there was no pressure to do anything other than exactly what they've been doing. And yes, once Anubis came on the block, you see Ball, no pun intended, getting on the ball here. And, he was playing with the Stargate programming in a way that hasn't been done since the Ancients.
Yeah, there's a great saying here. Necessity breeds invention.
I'm going to say this. Can we all agree Paul was the best Goa'uld bad guy in the entire series?
Oh, he was deliciously bad. He was a wonderful villain. You'd love to hate him.
He also wasn't cheaply written.
No, not at all.
God, no. He was fucking epically written.
But as I was going to go off on there, looking at the different technologies there with Star Trek. In Star Trek, you've had a continuous evolution of the technology from, well, the entire series. And you can have something as simple as, what do we take? Let's say multiphasic shields. They didn't have that to begin with because, well, we don't need it. Then they found something where the only way they could actually survive was by doing that, shifting frequencies and everything. Because otherwise, well, you're a Borg now. And all throughout Star Trek, and even looking at Enterprise, when you see the Time Wars, you see how the Federation keeps evolving, how they keep developing new things, how they keep being not complacent with where they are. Even if they don't have any enemies, they still feel the need to make themselves that much better. Their technology, even if it's adequate, could still be that little bit better. Just that means that they have to actually go further, because people want to further themselves.
So, well, that's the dichotomy of the Goa'uld versus the humans. I mean, Stargate has the same premise, basically. They want to go out and explore more stuff.
Yeah, that's how it started. Was we just want to explore. This connects other planets. Hell yes, we want to go explore these other planets, see what we can find. It wasn't until they properly ran into the Goa'uld. I mean, properly. I'm not talking about raw. I'm talking about properly running into the Goa'uld. That they're like, okay, now we need to shift this from just exploration to we actually need to start finding technology that people will trade with us that will help us defend our little corner of the universe. And then technology just started progressing at a fairly rapid pace
Well,
once we made friends with a certain key races.
well, yeah, you have that introduction to the old races, and well, you have a roundabout way of being introduced to the ancients, because fuckers ascended. But then you also had the way that the Nox treated them, and then you also have the Gold and the way they treated them, but then you have the Asgard. And even the
Asgard, you mean?
Huh?
Asgard?
you have a wonderful interplay there, where they were almost... It was a fluke that humanity even got to meet them in person the way that they did. And just the way that all played out, you have an interesting way of technological collectiveness there. And even then, it took the replicator threat before the Asgard were finally like, okay, here's everything we got. Because they realized they were boned.
Well, yeah, it's because it's like, okay, we need a different way of fighting this. And these humans that we've studied are whipping ass at everything. And, we don't think that primitively. We don't. Oh, okay, so this would have required something a lot simpler than what we're doing.
Hell, they named the new class a ship that they designed after Jack O'Neill.
They also, I mean, hell, one of the ships was even named Daniel Jackson too. So, I mean,
Well, don't forget that the humans of the Tauri were effectively the heirs apparent to the ancients.
Yeah, and they showed themselves to be. So you do have that aspect, but Star Trek here in this, and not just DS9, but all of Trek, does have the technological trump card. Replicators. And proper replicators, not the ones that want to try to kill you and make themselves look like you.
Stargate Borg.
Yeah,
pretty much. It's pretty much Stargate Borg.
Well, here is the thing. If you say the Federation, if the Federation wanted to just drop their ethics for a while, they just wanted to go completely ape shit over it, I'm pretty sure that you could set up transporters to actually replicate or clone Starfleet personnel en masse, as can be seen with Riker. It didn't take much.
Transporter accident.
Yeah. And you could do that pretty much as long as you had power. You could have an entire ship filled with precisely the people you need. You could have 500 enterprises as long as you had the dilithium. Because, well, otherwise you just need the power. You just need to be able to build the ship. Those are all things that you can do with Replicator or Transporter.
Come on, Streamlabs. Catch up and put the notification on board, because you guys are going to love this super chat.
What do you...
I saw it.
And there it is. Rodent No Last Name for $5 US. In the future, we translated the cetacean languages. It was a fluke.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
Oh, now it's popped up in the live stream too, unless I'm behind. Yep, I'm live.
Yeah, I was watching OBS. Time it that way, then we're good. Oh, God,
I have to
I
be
mean-
real for a minute.
The one thing about Stargate. Oh, what are we doing?
Keys are in the condition. You can take one. Which one do you choose?
Say that again.
So
The keys are in the ignition in all of these vehicles. You can take one. Which one do you take?
Kit.
the DeLorean. Wait. No, that one doesn't have Mr. Fusion on it yet. Although, you get the DeLorean, you go get the Mr. Fusion put onto it, then, hey, fuel for everywhere.
You're assuming that it comes preloaded with plutonium.
I would say Back to the Future and the DeLorean, just regardless.
I got this from Ansgar, and he said, while he would love to go with the DeLorean, he wouldn't fit, so therefore he's going with the A-Team van.
Screw all you, because Kit needs some loving, and I would go with Kit from Knight Rider.
What, you don't like the kit bashing?
Kit was awesome. I mean, come on. Kit can do almost everything within reason.
Oh, okay. By the people who laugh at that, I can tell who watches junk ball media and who doesn't.
I was wondering where the joke was there.
I would go with Knight Rider too. I'd go with Kit. Although it's just because it's got Mr. Feeney as the voice.
So one of the things about meta gaming about Stargate here is there's a bunch of things which are intentionally kept out of reach of the humans. Like, they're on Atlantis. There should be plans on how to make a ZPM. There should be a way to make the stuff to make ZPMs. It's just not there. Can't be done.
Instead of having to steal it from replicators.
Because apparently the replicators can make them.
Well, because keep in mind that that mainframe, that interface from the ancients, it does have its limitations because, well, not an individual, the species needs to prove itself to be worthy.
Oh, we're fucked.
Yeah, and Universe didn't help with that much either.
Yeah.
I have to give one thing, though, to Stargate that you don't really see that often in DS9 or in Stargate or Star Trek overall. The P90.
Sexiest gun on the planet.
It's a nice, and it's not a weapon of terror.
Yeah, I would say it's practical because it's compact but useful and unassuming initially. And to Dark Steve, just want to know, do you guys touch Doctor Who? Also, the TARDIS would be a car if it could. Yeah, you got to fix that chameleon circuit.
I don't really know about the whole touching Doctor Who right now. We could be seeing a sexual assault.
So, from a writing point of view, the thing that I will say about Stargate that I liked pretty much more than any other sci-fi series, the one aspect, is they, more often than many other shows, went back to their lore and referenced things in previous episodes. Something came from something else in one of the previous episodes, which didn't really happen as much in other sci-fi series. Especially at the time.
I would like to bring this up, though, because when you look at DS9, which you wouldn't actually have been able to do with TNG, and you wouldn't really have been able to do with Voyager, but in DS9, you see a lot more actual progression in it. And you see what choices earlier in the series really affect things happening later on in the series.
Like the introduction to the Dominion?
Yep. And just something like how Jake is trying to deal with not having his mother there, and then going into actually becoming a journalist or writer.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Because that's something where, depending on how you want to look at it, DS9 is actually the perfect counterpoint to that, in seeing how the different characters have acted throughout the series, in how characters who before were antagonistic, who were, well, outright just evil at times, could then be more and more seen as being
redeemable.
Redeemable.
To be fair, I mean, you want a perfect example, you got Quark, because Quark was an asshole at the beginning, and then he kind of mellowed out toward the end.
Well, and you have the pendulum swing of Dukat.
And you have things... Go on.
Well, you have that with Dukat specifically, for those who don't know. He started out as as the setup is essentially you're going to be the long-term bad guy, but then for a couple of seasons there in the middle, he was actually a more likable character because of the situation he was in. And then the Dominion came around and he swung back the other way. And also him joining the cult of the Pirates. You have that dynamic to a character that not all characters are clean cut. Not all character development is black and white. Look at Garrick. Look at what happened with Cisco and everything from there in order to get the Romulans to actively join the war finally. You have a lot of gray in the character development and behaviors in DS9 that, while you would see that in other creatures and other civilizations in other iterations of Trek, Voyager barely touched on it. DS9 dove headfirst into the gray area, the darker side of not just humanity, but people in general, no matter where they're from.
DS9 was definitely a different color of Star Trek than anything that had been previously.
I mean,
well, DS9 showed...
To be fair, I actually, for the longest time, DS9 was one of the series I never got a chance to watch. Mostly because Babylon 5 was on at the time, and I was watching that and Sequest. But when I, years later, when I finally got to watch it, I was like, holy shit, this is actually pretty cool. I mean, it had a little bit of a slow start, but once it got going, I actually enjoyed DS9 quite a lot.
I can say this about DS9, which you can't really say it about anything else there when it comes to Star Trek. You can watch an episode of DS9 and pretty much pin it down to what season you're in. Not because of things like hairstyles, etc., but because of how the characters have progressed, where in their character arc they are.
Yeah.
Season 1 Bashir was really irritating.
Even into season 2, he was that young that
busybody.
Bashir started out as DS9's equivalent of Wesley. The problem, the difference there, Bashir got better writing overall. Mm-hmm. And the character actually grew up.
I was going to say, also, wasn't Bashir also more useful than Wesley?
Who isn't more useful than Wesley?
Do you really want to go down that road? Because I don't want to say this name, but people are going to laugh. People are going to get angry. But everyone's going to have to agree with this one. If you want another useless character in a Star Trek series, sorry, tell me how All right, so you get to pick one character that is utterly useless to the crew, and now tell me why you picked Naomi Wildman.
In an alternate timeline, she could go on to become part of the crew.
Because 7 of 9 needed a foil.
I don't know. I mean, she at least had something going for her more than Wesley. She wasn't an obnoxious little cunt.
Okay.
Didn't Naomi Wildman have like more lines on Voyager than any other non-bridge crew member?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's because she's important.
That includes the episode where Janeway takes the lower decks.
Lower decks. Yep. That's exactly what I'm referencing.
Oh, Mute Donkey just asked, didn't we have this conversation last week? No. We were ripping on other ones. But Naomi did come up.
Here's a question, and this isn't really on the roulette wheel. Which show has the most consistent characters?
When you say consistent, you mean characters that don't change or are reliably themselves?
They are themselves, but if they change so based on how the character would react in universe. And for my own sake, I am not counting Catherine Janeway in this because, you know.
Well, so... Okay, I'm really tough in determining an answer on this one because I would have to say the most consistent characters have been in Discovery because they're consistently shit.
I thought we were going to talk about Star Trek.
Nice.
I'll say this. It's a toss-up, but in my opinion, I think I lean a little bit towards Stargate, but that's also because I am like absolutely in love with Stargate. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Trek, but Stargate's always been my favorite sci-fi. So
I'm going to have to throw down on Babylon 5 because, well, not only was basically the show written as a 5-year plot outline, but those characters had to be those characters because they were all scaffolded in beforehand.
I would say from a consistency on handling the character, so when the characters changed, it was actually for legitimate, story relevant, and appropriate reasons. I would honestly say it is a tie between Deep Space Nine and Stargate, because rarely did you run into a character doing something just because the story or plot needed them to. You have that root of, no, this character in these sorts of situations is going to act in this sort of way, and again, outside of extreme circumstances that were rational, that's how those characters acted in both. But when you get into...
No, I'm more referring to a thing that we were talking about earlier with, it's supposed to be around 2 hours long.
Yeah, we're actually getting right up to the limit that I like to keep for this series, and...
No, shit's working again.
Sorta, kinda. I'm blaming YouTube ultimately on this because OBS is trying to connect. It's just not being too happy about it. Come on. Yeah, you're connecting. You're sending shit. Now stop rejecting it, YouTube. Stop being an asshole, YouTube.
Stop saying no. You know you want it.
Oh no, it's bad as even on the analytics side in the studio, it's like, oh, no one's watching. Bullshit, no one's watching. I can see them in the chat. Oh, YouTube has had a lot of issues, and there we go. Now it is settling in a little bit better. But so the point that you were trying to make there, Leon, and that will ultimately be the last point of the show.
Yes, when it comes to seeing things in these different shows, in Star Trek and Stargate, the character progression, I would say that DS9 actually has somewhat slightly of an edge there, simply due to seasons 8 through 10. And how those seasons I'm not going to say that they ran out of stuff to write, but they started taking the characters that we had already established, and they started pushing them into roles where they did not necessarily belong. Whereas with DS9, it ended before that could actually happen.
Yeah, DS9, you did get a good, clean ending point, and arguably the best way to handle the ending of a show of that magnitude.
What are you saying? The Voyager making it to the Alpha Quadrant, it wasn't a good end?
Fucking MacGuffin.
Now let's go back and blow up the Borg too.
That ending was so phoned in, they had to break up AT&T.
No, that disappointed me. And all good things.
What, the joke or the ending?
Yes.
Both.
There you go.
But with that, we are going to bring this one to a bit of a close and watch, because we're ending it, YouTube's going to be happier and everything else is going to be happier. But guess what? We'll be back live on air in right about a half hour, because, sorry, motherfucker need to get something to eat for dinner. Don't know about you guys, but I'm hungry. This has been quite the topic and quite the interesting way of setting it up with the random selections. However, we are going to have a bit of fun next week, because we are going to be without Furball again, so we're going to have some fun and actually have a topic that we know he's going to want to be a part of, but not be able to.
Oh, you're terribly mean.
I do it to those I love.
That needs to warn. I'm sure he's never around anyway, so.
It's going to be alcohol in sci-fi, isn't
it? Hang on, because the announcement of the topic will actually be determined by Thursday. So I'm not waiting till Tuesday. No. That's for actual physical deliveries. But the announcement of what the subject will in fact be will be on Thursday. So keep an eye on Discord, keep an eye on Twitter, and all those other wonderful happy places. And go enjoy yourselves for about a half hour as we get ready to really crack things open and bring on the whole bunch of degenerates to join the show. And we will see you all on VTW in about 25 minutes at this point. See y'all soon.
Ring my bell to be a special subscriber.